Hello students, welcome to the class, and today in the class I'll teach you Chief Seattle's speech. In my previous class I've already spoken about the author, that is Chief Seattle, and also I have spoken about the few contents of the speech. But there are few context of the speech also, that is the few characters which may not be clearly mentioned here, and few references of the people where they are sometimes direct or sometimes indirectly being referred. And also I would like to tell you about the few terms being used for references, so that it is very clear for you that whom I am speaking about and who the Seattle is trying to refer to. So let us examine the context of the speech. Now, here we talk about President Franklin Pierce, who was the 14th President of the United States. Now, he actually had sent a letter to a Chief Seattle, to communicate the intention of the white settlers to purchase the Northwest Territories. Okay, so he had this intention, so he had sent a letter to Chief Seattle. Now, Governor Isaac Stevens was at that time the Commissioner of Indian Affairs for Washington Territory. Now, he had called for a meeting to discuss the surrender, or you can say the sale of land by the Native Americans to the white settlers. So this is what Governor Isaac Stevens had called a meeting for. This meeting actually took place on 11th March 1854 at Seattle itself. Seattle is also the name of the place, which the Chief Seattle made a speech based on this meeting. Now let me tell you about few more people mentioned in the passage, like George Washington. Now the natives actually thought that he was still alive, and which is why in his speech Chief Seattle referred to him as great, good, big chief and good father. So whenever I use the word great, good, big chief and good father, it means that he's talking about George Washington. Clear? Next is Governor Isaac Stevens. Now Governor Isaac Stevens was referred to as white chief. Clear? So whenever the word white chief is there or the references to the white chief, we are talking about Governor Isaac Stevens. Then we have paleface. Paleface is referred to the white settlers, and the red man refers to the Native Americans. And lastly, we talk about King George. Now the Hudson Bay traders call themselves as King George's men. Okay, this is how they refer to. And we can say that the natives actually thought that he was the monarch of England. And the white settlers encouraged this deception. Why? Why did they want them to think that way? Because they thought that if the natives found out that the monarch was a woman, they would not respect them, and the things might change, the situation might change. So he therefore begins about speaking of heaven. Okay, or you can say we start his speech with the sky. The first paragraph here, when we see, deals about yonder sky. He mentions yonder sky, means the sky which everybody is sharing. Clear? So now here in the first paragraph we see that Chief Seattle tries to talk about the line where he says, yonder sky has wept tears of compassion upon my people for centuries untold, and which to us appear changeless and eternal. May change today is fair. Now, see, in the first paragraph, deals with the change in the types and shapes Seattle responds beyond the sky that has wept tears of compassion upon my people for centuries untold, and which to us appears changeless and eternal, and may change yonder. Now, here, sky means the sky over the sky above our heads. He's talking about the sky that you and I can see. This sky over our heads has blessed my people. Now, here, Seattle is talking about the natives. My people, it has wept tears of compassion for centuries untold. Here, what is he trying to say is that we have lived on this land for hundreds, centuries means hundreds of years. And this guy, means Seattle, is the witness to that. Okay? That the sky appears changeless and eternal, which means he's trying to say that we never ever thought that the situation would change. But now we realize that it may have appeared changeless and eternal. That is, they thought that it is for forever for them. But things are no longer the same. The situation may change today, is fair today. The sky is clear. The weather is good tomorrow. It may be overcast with clouds, but just because the sky is clear today does not mean that tomorrow there will be new clouds. It does not mean that tomorrow the sky will not be dark. Similarly, the red man or the Native American has lived on this land for centuries, and they never thought that they would have to suffer someday. They never thought that on their homeland, on the native land, the situation would be such that they would be rendered powerless. Means they'll have no power. However, Chief Seattle continues, my words are like the stars that never change. No matter what happens, the stars in the sky do not change their position. Seemed similarly like my words. Now he's comparing his words with stars, and he says, you can rely upon my words because I will never ever go back on my word. Now, whatever Seattle says to the great chief at Washington, he says that he may rely or believe on him. He can rely upon him as much certainty as he can upon the return of the sun or the seasons. So he says that today whatever I say. The great chief at Washington, which means President Franklin Pierce. Please remember that, children, that the Chief Seattle was referring to George Washington, while in reality, the president at that time was Franklin Pierce. So, this is a little note for you to remember. So, he says that the president can rely upon my words with as much certainty as he can upon the return of the stars or the return of the seasons. The sun sets in the evening. However, we are sure that it will definitely rise again tomorrow morning. And we are certain similarly, now he refers with the same, we are certain similarly that seasons follow a certain pattern, a particular order, and that order name never varies, never change. Similarly, Seattle's words here, what he mentions, will never vary. They will never change. And one can rely upon his words. Okay? Then he says, the white chief says that Big Chief at Washington sends his greetings of friendship and goodwill. See the line here, he says, now this kind of him, for we know he has little need of our friendship in return. So the white chief, that is, I told you, the Governor Isaac Stevens, has said that Big Chief at Washington, which means the president, remember I'm just highlighting here, the president, he has sent them greetings of friendship and goodwill. Now Chief Seattle is saying that this is very kind of the president. Why? Because he does not really need our friendship. Why? Because we are just powerless now. So it is kind of him that he does not need our friendship. We are few in number. We are not many in number. Okay, because his people are like the grass that covers vast prairies. Prairies are grasslands. So the white settlers actually are numerous. They are huge in number. They are so many, like I said, the grass and the prairies, the grassland that covers a vast land. But when I talk about my people, they are few. On the other hand, and the Native Americans, he talks about the number by telling about that they resemble the scattering trees of storms swept plain. Just imagine, he says, it's like a land which we can imagine that there are many trees and they are suddenly, washed by a deadly storm. And what happens after such a deadly storm? We find that many trees get uprooted. Many trees get collapsed in the end. And what do you find after the storm, therefore? The remaining is only a few scattered trees here. And there only those few scattered trees are left standing. Are left standing. So the condition of the Chief Seattle's people, that is in the Native American, is also similar to that. Same condition. That is the great and I presume goodbye that chief sends us word that he wishes to buy our land. Okay? But is willing to allow us enough to live comfortably. Now, this is how he is just talking about or thanking him. He says that the great and good white chief, that is the governor, has told the Native Americans that he wishes to buy their land, but that does not mean that he is going to evacuate them. See, that is being nice of him, that he does not want us to completely evacuate. Who? The red man. The Native Americans will still be able to live on the land, same land. They will be given but a separate area or a small portion where they can live. And this indeed appears that they are just even generous towards the red man, and no longer has they have any right or they need any kind of respect that the whites offer, because it's a big country. The whites have an extensive country, and so therefore Chief Seattle, ironically, he says, yes, the governor is definitely generous and he offers such a just thing that they are so vast. Why? Because the red man is powerless now. This has been their land, but now only few number of people are left now. The white man, the governor, he does not mean to respect our rights. There's no need at all. So whatever he does, we will have to follow. Whatever he says, we will have to listen to him. And also his offer is wise, because we are so few in number that we no longer are going to need a vast country to live in. Okay? This is what he tries to tell. And then he continues his speech and talks about the untimely decay of the Native Americans and who is to be blamed for that. If there's an untimely decay of the Native Americans, who is to be blamed? Now let's see what he has to say about that. That earlier, there was a time when people of Native American covered the land as the waves of a wind-ruffled sea and covered its shell-paved floor. But he says that Chief Seattle says that there was a time not very long ago when our people were numerous in number, and we covered this land so much that there were so many of us that we filled up the entire land, just like the waves of wind-ruffled sea. Okay, so he's mentioned wind-ruffled sea covered with shell-paved floor. Now, wind-ruffled sea means the surface of the sea which is caressed gently by the wind. The shell-paved floor of the sea now here means the seabed which is covered with shells. So the shell-paved floor actually refers to the land, okay, to the richness of the land, how rich the land was. And the waves of the wind ruffles, he actually refers it to the numerous Native Americans that lived on this land. But that time, he says, was long ago. and that time has passed away with the greatness of the tribe that are now, but he says it's just a mournful memory, but that time was glorious time and has been long that it passed away. Now, along with the greatness of tribes, not only the greatness, he talks about the numbers also, that they were not only numerous, but they were also very great. He says that we have a great times, great people and grandeur. We had magnificence, but today I remember all of those things. I feel mournful of these things. And now, just a mournful of memory means he's mourning. He's mourning, he's lamenting that something is not true of the present anymore. Means the present situation is not the same. Because it is something that you just, when you look back and when you remember of the past, you feel sad about. Okay? But Seattle says, I will not dwell on or mourn over our untimely decay. But still, I will not keep talking about these things. I will not feel sad about the fact that we have been wiped out before our time. Untimely decay. Okay? Nor he is going to reproach my pale-faced brothers. Pale-face, I told you, the white men, with hastening it as too many have to be blamed for it. He says, I'm not going to blame my pale-faced brothers for it. Okay? That they are saying that they are the reason for our untimely decay. But I'm not going to say that. Why? As he feels that we too have somewhat to be blamed. We too have somewhat to be blamed. Because he feels that it is not just the fault of the white settlers, but also of the Native Americans to some extent. And he then elaborates about who is actually to be blamed. Okay? He says that how are the not Native Americans responsible for their own destruction? Now here in this paragraph, he talks about how are the Native Americans responsible. He clears this fact. He says that we are to be blamed. So he says that our destruction is because of the youth. Because youth is impulsive. Impulsive means acting on impulse, acting without thinking, or acting on the spur of the moment. Okay, students? Now, when our young men grow angry at some real or imaginary wrong, and this figure their faces with black paint. Now they color the face black, which denotes that their hearts are also turned black. So when the young Native Americans grow angry, when they feel anger at some real or imaginary injustice, immediately, without thinking, what do? They paint their faces black. That is, they disfigure their faces. They cover the original face so that when you paint your face black, what happens? You stop being what you really are. You may be very sensitive, kind-hearted person in real life, but the moment you have painted your face black means you are trying to conceal it. You're trying to hide it, that you have put on a war paint. That means there's something behind your true face. And it denotes that the hearts are also turned black, means there's a change in the intentions. They often become cruel and relentless. So when once you have painted your face black, you become a warrior. And what kind of warrior? A violent warrior. Okay, so your heart becomes black, means which actually means you are incapable of goodness, incapable of kindness. You really become very cruel and relentless. You don't stop being cruel at all. And our old men and women are unable to restrain them, to stop them. Okay, so when the young men are in such a violent mood, at that time, the old people of the tribe are not able to hold them back. They are not able to control them. Thus, it has ever, you will find, has ever been, this is how things have always been. Thus, it was when the white man began to push our forefathers towards westward side. So once these white settlers began to take over the lands of the Native Americans and push them towards the west, the young Native Americans now began to react in such a manner that we can just hope that the hostilities or the enmity between us may never return. So Chief Seattle now says that let us hope that the enmity that existed between us, the enmity or the ill feeling that we had for each other would never continue. Okay? Then he says, we would have everything to lose and nothing to gain. So if the Native Americans engaged in hostility, that is enmity, if they engage them into enmity with the white settlers, then they are the ones who will be the losers, and they will have nothing to gain by revenge. Okay, they'll gain nothing. Young men is considered that they want to gain things or gain their revenge at any cost, even at the cost of their lives. So he would say that if I take revenge, that is my gain, that is my profit. It doesn't matter if I lose my life. This is what the young people have in the mind. But old men who stay at home in times of wars, and mothers who have sons to lose know better. Okay, that means the parents of these young men, their families who depend on them, they know better that what consequence they have to face. Therefore, they would disagree. They would not want these young men to give up their lives. Okay? Now coming to the paragraph 4, we find what is next now. What happens next? Now, is there a way forward for the Native American? Is there a way out? We have to know that what is going to lead them. Now here, he says that our American, our good father in Washington, for I presume he is now our father as well as yours, since King George has moved his boundaries further. Not so our good father in Washington. Now, here it means the president, he says that the president is now our father as well as yours. When he says that he is now our father, he means to say that we have accepted the guardianship of the president at Washington. Okay? Since King George has moved his boundaries further, not the Native Americans believe that England was ruled by a man, but here actually it was ruled by a woman. So they believe that it was ruled not by a woman, hence the reference to King George. So the white settlers have captured a lot of the Native Americans' land. So Chief Seattle says, our good and great father, I say, sends us word that if we do as he desires, he will protect us. So a message has come to them from the president. And what does he say there? The president says that if they accept the sovereignty of the white settlers and follow the instructions, then he will definitely protect them. And the brave warriors will be like the wall strength to the natives. So the white settlers will now become a wall of strength, and they will stand in between the Native Americans belonging to Chief Seattle tribe, and they are going to defend them against their ancient enemies. Now the ancient enemies, now see here they are mentioning the ancient enemies far to the northward, and those are the Hiders and the Shimshans. Now here the Hiders and Shimshans are Sa or other Native American tribes who were the ancient enemies of the Red Indians. And he says that the people, the white, will now seize them to frighten the women and old men and children. They're going to protect them, provide a protection to the Native Americans from the ancient enemies. And these enemies will no longer be able to frighten them. Okay? So then in reality, he will be our father and we will be his children. Clear? So with this, I wind up for today's class, students. I hope you go through the explanation which I have given, and read it not only once, twice and thrice, and as many times till you understand, because I told you this chapter is not very simple. It's very difficult to understand. So the more times you read it, the more you understand. So till then, students, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.